Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life and welcome to this week's final ever episode review. Oh, it doesn't feel real, does it guys? I have got so much to talk about with all of you, but before we get started, if this is your first time here, then hit that subscribe button right now for all future updates. Okay guys, wow, what an episode. Absolutely off the scale. It didn't disappoint me at all. I loved the whole episode. I think the whole cast and crew did an amazing job, but there's always a but. In my opinion, it didn't feel like a final ever episode. I mean, it felt like a final episode for a season, but it didn't feel like it was the end of Wentworth. A lot of things were left open for certain storylines and certain character storylines, and it just made me feel that the writers, maybe they're hoping for some sort of Wentworth return one day. Let me give you a quick example before I jump into the review. Cast your minds back to Season 7, Episode 10. It was the second part of the siege, and it was the final episode of Season 7. Now, this was originally going to be Wentworth's final ever episode, and at the time of watching the episode, it did feel like a final episode. All the storylines came to an end, and poor Liz was killed off, and it was looking like that Rita was going to be the new top dog, as in Wentworth's final ever top dog. However, the writers changed that part of the storyline, and they gave Rita the protective custody storyline instead, and then of course Ferguson popped back up. But before that happened, Season 7, Episode 10, it did feel like a final ever episode. This episode, however, it didn't give me the same impression. Way too many things were left open for it to be a final ever episode, in my opinion. I mean, if a TV show is coming to an end forever, and they've been given a chance to close down the show with 2 final seasons, then none of these storylines should have stayed left open. But I am going to go into a lot more detail about this after I have finished the review, so stay with me guys. Right then, so the episode recap begins, and we are reminded of everyone's storyline since Season 6, which I really enjoyed, but there was also a flashback to Season 4 with those seahorses in the sky with Bea and Ali, and I tell you what guys, I was so freaking excited when they showed this clip, because I was like, there has to be some sort of Bea appearance or reference in this episode. There just has to be. They wouldn't show this clip at the start of an episode if there wasn't going to be. Anyway, the opening credits roll, and they brought back the lyrics one final time, which I thought was a really nice touch. I literally had tears in my eyes just at the opening credits, so I knew this was gonna be an emotional roller coaster, and I was probably gonna be a blubbering mess all through the episode. So the episode begins with Fraser and another guy building the bomb, which is rigged to a timer to go off at 5 p.m. We then cut to a bit of music montage opening sort of thing going on. Like, we got Ali waking up, and then it cuts to Rita, and then Ruby, and then Boomer, and the song that they were playing, it was so sad. It was also making me very emotional. We then cut back to Ali in bed, trying to put her trouser bottoms on, and you can see she's struggling, and she's rolling her eyes because she's very fed up of doing this morning routine every morning. But she then stops and pauses for a moment. She's looking down at the cuts on her legs, and she starts putting her finger over them, and she starts pressing down really hard with her thumb. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this scene, it was saying to me that Ali was getting some sort of feeling sensation in her legs, or at least with the cuts on her legs. I mean, look at her face as she's pressing down. You can see she's got some sort of hope in her face, and she's looking quite happy. The only problem with this scene is this is all we get. It isn't addressed again in the episode. All we have is this scene, so we don't know whether if Ali was getting feeling in her legs. I mean, it was looking like that she was, but what does this mean? Does this mean that she could walk again one day? It was never addressed again, guys, and this is the only problem I have with this episode. There's a lot of moments like this where there's questions we need answered. Anyway, we then cut to Ali, Rita, Ruby, and Boomer going down the hallway being escorted by officers who are pretty much their bodyguards at the moment. They then pass some of the women in the hallway and they're all shouting abuse at them, and I didn't like this at all. It made me feel really sad because this only really usually happens to the baddies. Like, remember when Mari first was let out of protection last season, or Joan coming into general? This shouldn't be happening to our H1 ladies. Luke Kelly is also there in the hallway, loving all the abuse that's being aimed at the H1 crew. We then cut to Will Jackson holding a staff meeting, telling everyone that this is a crisis and that they need to protect the prisoners. Linda speaks up and says that they don't have the staff, but Will simply says that all staff members are going to be doing double shifts, and Linda suggests that why don't we just lock all the women down? To which Will says that it's unsustainable, and Vera says neither is guarding one small group of prisoners. But Will says it's only for 24 hours. After Mari Winter's death, it's obvious that the policies have failed. I loved it when Will said that line because it was obviously aimed at Anne Reynolds. Will then says that he's planning on reopening the protection unit, and Jake is like, good luck with that one, and Linda says Anne won't have a bar of it, and then in walks Anne Reynolds, late to the meeting as usual. Anne is then like, I am aware of certain accusations that have been made against me, but fortunately I have bigger things to worry about. She goes on to say that she has been dealing with matters of national importance, while other certain officers have been gossiping with silly work politics. And as she's saying this, she's looking at Vera and Will, like looking them up and down. Oh, what a bitch. And then says that this time tomorrow she will be getting a big juicy promotion, while some of the officers will be looking for new jobs. Now, when Anne said that, I couldn't really tell who she was looking at. I mean, it looked like that she was looking towards Linda Miles' direction, I'm not sure. Either way, my first reaction to this scene was, I just want this bitch to die. Jake then goes up to Will and asks him, what are they going to do about Ferguson? And Will says, you leave her to me. We then cut to Ferguson and Will in his office. Now, remember last week when Will asked Dr. Miller to sign a document, but we didn't know what this document was? Well, in this scene, my prediction came true. Dr. Miller signed a document declaring that Joan Ferguson is criminally insane and is being transferred to the Sinclair Institute first thing in the morning. Now, the Sinclair Institute is the same place where Eve Wilder ended up. Joan turns around and she's like, I am not criminally insane, to which Will replies, well, Dr. Miller thinks different. And Will then gives off this cheeky grin. I mean, look at that, he's even got happy eyes. Joan then goes up to Will and says, do you really think you can escape the consequences of your actions by saying I'm mad? And Will then says, I know you're gonna fuck us over at some point, Ferguson, but you can do that from a padded cell. Look at Joan's face and her eyes, she ain't happy. Right then, my thoughts on this scene. I mean, I can totally see where Will is coming from because she will screw them over when she's ready. However, sticking her in a padded cell isn't going to stop Joan from sending a copy of that gravesite photo to the police. It's not like the police could ignore that. If it was just Joan's word against theirs, then yeah, they would be less likely to believe a mad woman in an institute. But she has evidence that can destroy their lives. As much as I loved Will's optimism in the scene of trying to get rid of Joan once and for all, I think he got a little bit too ambitious in my opinion. But at this point in the episode, I was thinking to myself, is there going to be a big Joan and Will showdown by the end of this episode? But sadly, guys, once again, we don't have any more Will and Joan Ferguson scenes together after this one. This was something else that was just kind of left open, up in the air in a weird way. You would have thought that Joan would have had one final go at trying to kill Will, but we don't get that, guys, which I thought was a real shame, because it felt like that's where we were going after having this scene. Never mind. You never know, there might be a season 10 one day. Wink, wink. We then cut to Joan in general general walking back to her unit, and all the women are there hurling a load of abuse towards her because they now all know that Joan has got her memory back. So Joan is then stopped in the corridor by Rita. Now, I absolutely loved this scene because I believe this is the first time Rita and Joan have spoken to each other. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, I'm sure this is the first time. So Rita says to Joan, "It seems like we both have big targets on us," and Joan says something like, "I think you might be more of a pariah than I am at the moment." Rita then asks Joan for some help. She tells Joan that there is a phone in her unit and Lou has it and Rita wants it. Joan then says, "Why should I help you, Connors?" And Rita replies saying, "If you get me that phone, I will convince the H1 crew to join forces with her so they can all protect each other." But Joan just says, "I think that ship has well and truly sailed." And I was like, yes, I think so too, Joan. There is no way Ali or Boomer would have allowed that. I mean, Rita and Ruby, they don't really have any history with Joan, but Ali and Boomer, not a chance. Later on, Anne Reynolds goes to Linda to give her some forms, saying that Judy Bryant has a court appearance at 5 p.m. And Linda is like, "Whoa, that's a bit late in the day to be having a court appearance," to which Anne replies saying that Judy's QC has scheduled a special hearing. Linda then checks the computer and sees that there is nothing down on the schedule. I think Linda is smelling a rat in this scene because Linda, she did witness what Anne did to Judy last week. In fact, Linda was great in this episode. It did feel like we had the old Linda back, and that's probably because she's no longer in Anne Reynolds' grip. So I was quite pleased about that. Anyway, Anne tells Linda to make sure that Judy is in a holding cell no later than 4:45 p.m. Anne then walks off down the corridor with an evil grin on her face, looking proper smug. Vera then comes running down behind her, calling her for a chat. Anne turns around and says, "What's there to talk about apart from your treachery?" But Vera is like, "Maybe we can talk about tomorrow's board meeting," saying that she has reported her for the attack on Judy last week. Vera then goes on to say that she is supporting Will's motion to have her removed, and I was like, yes, Vera. It took you long enough, but you got there in the end. Anne then just bursts out laughing and tells Vera that she's in for a big surprise. Now this got me thinking, is Anne actually hoping that this bomb is going to go off? Because if she is, then she really is one sick and twisted motherfucker, especially after what happened with her daughter. I just can't believe that. But at this stage of the episode, I was thinking to myself that Anne wants the bomb to go off, and she wants it to go off because then Will and Vera will probably lose their jobs. That's if they don't get killed. And also for Judy Bryant, she'll end up being charged with the bomb plot. So it's really sick and twisted, and I just can't believe Anne would want this to happen, but it's fine. I'm just really hoping that Anne's going to be dead by the end of this episode. So anyway, Anne walks off and Jane arrives and tells Vera that Will is sending Ferguson to Sinclair and that he is poking the bear. So he suggests to Vera that they should go and grab Grace, pack everything up and just go on the run. Oh dear, when I saw this scene I was just like, how many times has Jake tried to do this? I'm surprised Jake hasn't kidnapped baby Grace himself and done a runner. Now that would have been a big twist in the story. Anyway, Vera is like, I ain't running from Ferguson anymore, she will take whatever Ferguson throws at her. We then cut to Fraser and his wingman putting this massive bomb into the back of the van. Look at the size of that bomb, that is insane. I mean, what are they trying to do, blow the whole world up or something? Seriously, that is like the biggest bomb I've ever seen on a TV show. They place this bomb into the back of the van and they put a big sheet over it, and the whole time we can hear the timer beeping down. And at this stage of the episode, the clock is at 2:32 p.m, so not long until blast off, which is at 5 p.m. We cut over to Boomer, who is on the phone trying to get through to Gavin to give him the good news about the baby, but she gets his answer phone message, so Boomer leaves him a message saying that she's pregnant and it's his. And she then says this really cute nervous speech saying that she doesn't know whether if he wants to be a dad or if he wants to be part of the baby's life. Either way it's cool for her, but you can tell Boomer wants the whole family package, bless her. Anyway, she's about to hang up and then we hear Gavin's voice going, Susan, Susan, is that you? Thank God, it's so good to hear his voice, because I'm not joking guys, I thought Gavin was dead. Anyway, Gavin tells Boomer that he's been locked up ever since the camera was found on him, which is why Boomer hasn't been able to contact him. He then says that he is so happy that she is pregnant and that he is there for both her and the baby and that they are all a team. And I was like, oh, this is so lush. I am so happy for Boomer. Like, I honestly thought Gavin had been killed by the NSO guy, so when he said all of this to Boomer, I was taken by surprise just as much as Boomer was. I mean, I know their storyline started off all perverted and everything, but I'm glad it's ended on good terms like this. Of course though, I was very worried at this point because of the bomb that is on its way in. In the corridor, Judy runs up to Lou and asks her, what did Fraser say after you called the bomb plan off? And Lou turns around and says, Fraser is just very happy that you're getting out. We then see Fraser and the other guy in the van dressed up as prison officers driving straight for Wentworth. Ali is coming down the corridor and she bumps into Lou Kelly. Now, the officer who is shadowing Ali decides to stop and have a chat with another officer, which I thought was a little dumb, seeing as they all know that Lou and her crew are the biggest threat to H1. Oh dear. Anyway, Lou tells Ali that it's only a matter of time before someone finishes what Judy started. And Ali is like, well, who is going to do your dirty work now that Mullet is in the slot? And Lou tells Ali the truth. Mullet didn't kill Mari. Lou had that pleasure all to herself. And look at Ali's face. She looks really shocked and quite concerned at this point. Back in the H1 unit, and Boomer is giving Ruby and Rita the good news about Gavin, standing by her and the baby, and then Ali comes in and tells them all that it was Lou who killed Mari. Jake comes running to H1, telling them that they are now all currently confined to the unit with 2 officers permanently stationed at the gate to protect them, until the protection unit has reopened tomorrow. And Rita is like, you can't keep us in here, and Jake is like, yes I can, the orders come straight from the governor. Rita goes into her cell and Ruby follows her in, and Rita is like, there is no way we are going to get that phone now, not with all of us going into protection. And Rita apologizes to Ruby because now they are both stuck in Wentworth looking at life sentences, and this scene just broke my heart for both Rita and Ruby. They have tried everything, they've been honest. I mean, they were honest with the police and it's all backfired on them. And I mean, it's like, it's no wonder that they don't tell the police the truth sometimes, because telling the truth just doesn't work. Rita says that she can't see a way out for them anymore, not without getting their hands on that phone. And Ali, she is listening just outside by the doorway. In the next scene, Fraser arrives with the van at Wentworth. They come through the front security barrier and we can hear the NSO guys in the background talking through their walkie-talkies, saying that Fraser has just arrived. Dale, the NSO guy, is like, they've arrived 45 minutes early. So Dale instructs all of the armed cops that as soon as the bomb device has been taken from the van and attached to the south wall, that is when they go. But of course, as we all know, that bomb isn't going to the south wall. It's staying right by the main administration area in the van. Fraser and the other guy, they get out of the van and then they head into the prison, leaving the van just at the side of the building. Now, at this point on the clock, it is 4:16 p.m, so just under 45 minutes until blast off. Judy finishes having a meeting with her solicitor and he is telling her that if things go to plan as he expects, then he will have Judy out by this time tomorrow. And I was like, no, not a chance, Judy. You are not leaving that prison. Not a chance. Surprisingly though, Judy, I think she asked the solicitor guy to look into Lou Kelly's case. So I'm not sure what was happening here, but it seemed like to me that Judy was actually doing something nice for Lou. Maybe after Lou was being protecting her, I'm not sure, but I'm not even sure if Lou knew about this. It did surprise me. Judy then spots Fraser and the other guy coming out of the visitors' toilets and leaving the prison. And Judy is just like, what is going on here? So Fraser and this other guy, they went into the prison dressed up as officers, and then they obviously slipped into the toilets, got changed, and then they left the prison pretending that they had just visited someone. Now I know there's probably a load of people out there who could pick this scene apart with plot holes, but let's face it, If Fraser can make a bomb on this scale, then I'm pretty sure he could have had some fake visitor passes made. Also, I'm pretty sure didn't Dale the NSO guy say in the previous episode that Fraser had hacked into the prison network, so yeah, I'm willing to roll with it. He would have had no trouble getting in and out of administration. Anyway, Judy is now worried and she goes running to Lou, asking her what the hell was Fraser doing here in the prison, and Lou was like, well, he probably needed to change his clothes before he left, and she then admits to Judy that the plan is still on. It was never going to be called off just because Judy's daddy had managed to get her charges dropped, and Judy is like, you have to stop it, Lou, you have to stop it. And Lou then grabs Judy by the throat, telling her that she was never gonna let Reb's death go unpunished. This bomb is going to go off, and there is nothing you can do about it. The whole time she's saying this to Judy, Joan is in her cell listening to the conversation. Linda then comes into the unit and tells Judy to go with her, and Judy looks like she's about to burst into tears. Joan then slips off and heads to H1, where there is an officer guarding them. Joan tells the officer that she would like to speak to Rita, but the officer just tells Joan to piss off. And Rita comes up and she's like, it's okay, Miss Dean. So Miss Dean goes off and leaves them to chat for a moment. So Rita's like, is this about the phone? And Joan says it's about Lou Kelly. I know what she has planned. She's hoping to bomb her way out of the prison today. She overheard her talking to Judy. Rita is like, well, why are you telling me all of this? To which Joan delivers an amazing line that literally had me burst out laughing. So Joan says, I have no love for Lou Kelly. And Joan then raises up her burnt hand. She then says, and she killed my goldfish. That was just brilliant. It made me realise that Vera actually knows Joan a lot better than what I thought, because she mentioned it earlier on in the season. Bloody brilliant. Anyway, Miss Dean is then like, time's up, Ferguson, but then Joan pretends to feel dizzy and faints, and Miss Dean is like, Ferguson, what's wrong with you? And Miss Dean runs down and tries to help her, and this gives Rita the opportunity to run out of H1 and head straight over to Lou Kelly's unit. This will lead us on to a big fight scene, a fight scene that we've all been waiting for. But just before we get to this fight scene, Judy is locked into a holding cell by Linda, and Judy is telling Linda that she wants to speak to the governor, but Linda just ignores her and walks off. Anne then arrives, and then she's like, what seems to be the problem? And Judy's like, I don't want to talk to you. So Anne is like, suit yourself, and she goes to walk off, and Judy is like, okay. It's Lou Kelly. She's planning an escape with a bomb. It's out there right now in a prison van. You have to believe me. Anne then replies saying that she does believe her. She's been miles ahead of her for weeks. And Judy's like, it's not me, it's Lou Kelly. But Anne, she isn't listening to anything that Judy is saying. Anne tells Judy that locking her up in a holding cell is her own personal insurance, and whatever happens, she ain't going anywhere. Anne then brings her face right up to the glass, and she's like, you killed my daughter, now you're going to fucking pay. And Judy is like, what are you talking about? And Anne is like, the NSO told me what you did. And Judy's like, you can't believe a word that they say. They will say anything to keep me locked up. But Anne just walks off, and Judy's banging on the glass, screaming that you have to stop it. So my thoughts on this scene was that maybe Dale, the NSO guy, he did lie to Anne about Judy being a part of Charlotte's death. I have a feeling that on this occasion, Judy is telling the truth. I don't think she had anything to do with that UK terrorist attack. I think the NSO guy just implied it just so Anne wouldn't stop the bomb plan from going ahead. I mean, Judy is a terrorist, but on this occasion, Judy, in my opinion, was telling the truth. We then cut to Lou Kelly in her cell, grabbing the mobile phone and sticking it in her pocket. She also grabs a photo of Reb because I'm assuming Lou is getting ready to make a run for it as soon as the bomb has gone off. But Rita arrives on the scene and she says to Lou, when's this bomb going off? And Lou is like, it's too late, there's nothing you can do about it. So Rita's like, well, what sort of danger are the women in? And at least let them try and get somewhere safe. But Lou is like, nobody gave Reb a chance, so I don't give a fuck about the women. Lou then goes to walk out of the cell, and then Rita hits Lou right in the face, sending Lou flying back. But this does cause Rita's ribs to hurt, because if you remember, her ribs are broken from the kick-in that she got a few episodes ago. So this gives Lou a chance to go at Rita, which of course she's gonna do. This is Lou Kelly. Lou pushes Rita up against the corner of the cell and punches Rita right in her broken ribs. My god, guys, that must have seriously hurt. Lou then goes to walk out of the cell door again, but Rita grabs Lou, but Lou turns around and headbutts Rita in the face. Rita then just loses it. She punches Lou straight in the face, and it was a hell of a punch. Rita then kicks Lou, but then Lou runs at Rita and kicks Rita right in the vagina. This fight was a very painful one indeed. But this doesn't stop either of them. They keep going at it. I mean, Lou grabs Rita and knees her in the body again and again. And just as Lou goes to punch Rita, Rita blocks it with her arm. And Rita punches Lou right in the mouth and a load of blood comes flying out. Rita then has Lou up against the wall and is punching the crap out of her. Joan comes in and sees the fight and then presses the panic alarm. Ali also arrives on the scene and sees the fight. At this point, Rita and Lou are pretty much bear hugging each other and trying to crush each other's bodies. Once again, this must have been killing Rita's ribs, but fair play, she keeps going. Rita then ends up throwing Lou over the table, which is the scene that we saw in one of the trailers. And as Lou rolls over this table, the mobile phone in her pocket goes flying across the floor and lands under one of those sofa chairs. And Ali notices where the mobile phone has gone. Now, while Lou is on the floor, Rita bends down and starts punching her in the face over and over again. And Joan just goes to her cell and starts to brush her hair like nothing's happening. Joan was full of comedy moments in the first half of this episode, I've got to say. Rita keeps on hitting Lou and Ali goes to grab the phone, but Linda and a few officers arrive on the scene. They tell Ali to stop where she is, and the officers then they separate Lou and Rita, and Lou is mad. She's screaming at the officers to get the fuck off her, and it's wild. Rita and Lou are both taken down to the slot and Lou is going crazy. And Rita, she's trying to tell Linda that she needs to speak to the governor, the women are in danger, but nobody is listening to her. And they just throw her into the slot next to Lou, and Rita even tells Linda there is a bomb. She's not bullshitting, but Linda just walks off and Rita screams out, fuck! I love this scene, it was so intense. When Rita and Lou were both being dragged away into the slot, and when Rita screamed at the end, it reminded me of the time when she was taken to the slot just after killing Drago and Rita was going nuts. So the bomb is ticking down and the NSO guys are wondering where's this bomb by the south wall. An officer radios through to Dale telling him that the van is still at the main entrance, and Dale is like, what's it doing there? At this point there is just 50 minutes until boom. Vera is in the administration area, and on the CCTV camera next to her we can see the van. And Jake comes in and he asks Vera, what's that van doing there? It's been there for like 20 minutes. So Vera walks off, and I was panicking a little bit now at this point because Vera goes to the van to check it out, and I was like, no, Vera, get away from the van. It's going to explode any minute, step away. Vera then walks up to the driver's door and she's just looking, and I've got my hands on my face and on my head thinking, oh my god, she's going to blow up, and she's looking a little bit confused, but then Vera thankfully walks back to the prison. Whew. Vera then goes back to Jake, and Jake tells Vera that Judy is apparently scheduled for a court hearing at 5 PM and she's in a holding cell. But nothing has come through from the courts all day, so Vera says that she will go and talk to Anne. Dale, the NSO guy, thinks that the bomb plot isn't actually going ahead now. He thinks that Judy's fake court appearance is just a plot for her to escape in the van with Fraser. He tells his crew that they will wait until 5 PM for Judy to go in the van, and as soon as she's in the van, they will then pounce on her. Linda then goes to Will and reports this bomb story to him, saying that Rita and Lou were getting stuck into each other, but Rita was saying something about a bomb, so Will is like, where is she? We then cut to Rita and Lou in the slot, and Rita is talking to Lou through the vent, trying to persuade Lou to stop this bomb. It's not too late. Rita tells Lou that you can't give up on hope, but Lou is like, my hope died with a rope around his neck. And Rita's like, it is awful what happened to Reb, but none of the women deserve what's about to happen to them. But Lou ain't interested. Nobody cared for Reb, so she's not going to care for them. I actually really enjoyed this scene between Rita and Lou talking through the vent. I felt it was very powerful, and of course the tension was just building and building because the camera kept going back and forth to the bomb timer getting closer and closer to 5 PM. At this stage there was just 30 seconds left on this timer, so the NSO guys, they come running down to the van with their guns surrounding the van, and Dale creeps forward towards the back of the van with his gun, and the timer is ticking down and down and down, and he gets to the back of the van, looks in, and then he's like, where the fuck is Bryant? And then boom! The bomb goes off, taking out Dale and all of the NSO guys and half of the prison building. Like, literally, it's a huge explosion, and the whole blast takes out a whole part of the prison, and when the smoke blows away, what's left of the prison literally crumbles down into a pile of bricks. It was brutal. Now, when I first saw this explosion, I thought, oh my god, they're all dead. Who the hell could survive that? At the same time, I did think to myself, oh, is that it? Don't get me wrong, guys, it was an amazing scene, an amazing explosion. I just think after about 5 episodes of this bomb storyline hype, I think I was just expecting a little bit more. I don't know, I think I was just expecting to see the bomb explosion from inside the prison as well as the outside. Like, I thought there would be multiple scenes of the explosion, and we would see prisoners and officers flying through walls and gates flying off its hinges. I just felt a little bit let down just from the explosion scene. I mean, it was brilliant, but I just wanted a bit more. What about you guys? Let me know your thoughts on the actual explosion scene in the comments box below. So, the bomb has gone off, and now the aftermath is my favourite part of this whole episode because it was total carnage and chaos, and I loved every minute of it. The first scene we cut to is Mr. Jackson, and he's on the ground, and he's just coming around after the explosion and wondering what the fuck has just happened. The building all around him is in bits, and there's lights flashing and there's alarms going off. It was crazy. As Will is looking, we hear someone screaming for help, and you vaguely see a woman in the distance jumping around asking for help. I think this might have been one of the background prisoners chained to one of those punishment benches. Will then sees a body on the floor, and I ain't gonna lie, guys, at first I thought it was Vera, but when the flashing light focused properly, I could see it was one of the background prisoners. But look at that. Honestly, I thought that was Vera for a second. We then see Rita on the ground sitting up and looking a little injured, but she's okay. She gets up and she's looking around, and the whole slot is pretty much caved in on everyone, and she goes to the door and she's starting to bang and press against it. We then cut to Ali, who is coughing her guts up, and Ali is alone in a wheelchair surrounded by rubble and chaos. Ali has some cuts on her face and her head, but she seems okay for the moment. But she is trapped in the rubble and she can't move her wheelchair. We then cut back to the area that Will is in, and Linda pops up, telling Will that Rita was right, there was a bomb. Linda is also here. She's got blood and cuts to her face and her head, but she seems okay as well. Will tells Linda to try and get everyone evacuated into the main muster point. Rita then manages to push open the door and she gets out, and she's looking around and looking shocked at what she's seeing. Rita then sees Mullet's dead body on the floor, and Mullet is handcuffed to an officer who is also dead. Now, I didn't spot the officer when I first saw the episode. There was so much going on, but while I was doing screenshot for this episode and for this video, I noticed it and I lit it up on the photo and I spotted, oh wow, there was a dead officer chained to Mullet. So Rita bends down and finds some keys and a swipe card. I mean, she tries to use it on the gate, but of course everything's been blown up and the electrics are all gone. Back to Ali, and she can't move her wheelchair in the rubble. She's calling out for Officer Dean, but she spots Officer Dean's dead body on the floor. Ali tries to reach down to her, but there's nothing Ali can do now. Officer Dean is dead. We then cut to Boomer and Ruby, who are in H1 in all the carnage. They are okay, but they are trapped in H1 with the gates locked. There's flashing lights everywhere, and it was an amazing scene to watch. It was like a scene out of an end of the world style movie. There were electric sparks flying everywhere, and it was just incredible. Boomer and Ruby are calling for help, but a load of women, they're just running past them, and Boomer's like, I got myself knocked up, I'm not losing everything now. Back to Ali, and she's calling out for help to anyone that can hear her. Will is continuing to get all the women out in his area, and then there was this spine-chilling moment that literally made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Will turns around and he sees two inmates coming towards him, but one of them is missing half of their left leg. And my god, guys, this took me a bit by surprise. Kudos to the Wentworth team for keeping this shit real, because this is what happens during an explosion. People do lose limbs, and it was absolutely terrifying to watch. I had goosebumps when I saw this scene. Back to Rita, who was still trying to get out of the slot area, and Rita spots a big hole in one of the walls that has been blown through. We then see Luke Haley still stuck in her cell, and she's banging on the door, shouting for someone to get her out. Rita goes up to Lou on the other side of the door, looks Lou in the face and says, "Fuck you." She then leaves Lou locked in the cell, and Rita climbs through the hole in the wall. Back to Boomer and Ruby, and Zaina finds them. Zaina tells him that a bomb has gone off and half of the prison has gone. Ruby tells Zaina that she needs to go and find an officer to come and get them out of there, so Zaina goes off to find an officer. Back to Will, who is showing everyone the way out, and we see Jake, who doesn't appear to be hurt. He is asking Will if he's seen Vera. She was on her way to the exit level, I think that's what Jake said. And then Will has this shocked look on his face, and he says there is no more exit level. And I was like, no, surely not. We then cut back to Ali, and the room is starting to shake, and the roof in the distance completely caves in. And as it caves in, so does the hallway outside, which comes flying out, and the debris flies towards Boomer and Ruby and H1. I was like, oh my god, they're all going to be trapped now. I can see it. I cannot cope. Ali looks up and notices that there's an emergency door that she might be able to get through. We then cut to Vera. So Vera is okay. She hasn't been blown to bits yet, but she's walking slowly through the broken prison, looking shocked and confused, but she looks okay. Her hair is a little bit messy, and she has a little cut on her face, but she's still in one piece. She walks around and sees an inmate laying on the floor. Vera goes over to check if the person is okay, and as she pulls this person over, it's Judy Bryant, and she is dead as a doornail. She has been impaled by some wood block thing that has gone straight through her chest. Now, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I ain't gonna lose any sleep over that one. It's just a shame her death would have been quick and instant. I would have preferred Judy to maybe catch on fire or something. I know, I'm brutal, but she deserves it. Back to Ali, and she has climbed out of her wheelchair, and she's pulling herself with all her strength through the rubble towards this emergency door. She manages to open it and pulls herself through. She then spots the chair with the mobile phone underneath it in the distance, so Ali starts to pull herself towards the phone. Back to Vera, who is walking around, probably looking around for any survivors that might need help, and she spots Anne Reynolds in her demolished office, going through some files as if she's looking for something. Vera comes in and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Anne is babbling something like, I need to find the paperwork on Judy Bryant that I filed away this morning. And Vera is like, we need to get out now. What on earth are you talking about? And then just blurts out that we had to let the bomb in. We had to tie the whole thing to Judy Bryant. And Vera is like, you let the bomb in, while Anne continues to rummage around in her files, and Vera screams, Anne, you let this happen. Innocent people are dead. Anne then says Judy Bryant planted this bomb. She killed my daughter. She has to pay. Vera then says Judy Bryant is over there and she is dead. And then Anne is like, she's dead. She's dead. And look at Anne's face. She literally looks like she's having an orgasm. She is so happy Judy Bryant is dead. Look at her face. She looks like she's about to break out into a dance. Vera looks at Anne in complete disgust and starts to walk away. Anne then snaps out of her orgasm and realizes, shit, Vera knows I let the bomb in. So Anne runs towards Vera and tells her that she can't tell anyone that she knew about the bomb. But Vera ignores her and continues to walk off. Anne then turns into a completely crazy bitch again and runs at Vera and throws her to the floor. Like, she turns into the mother of all crazy bitches. I ain't joking, guys. Anne then gets on top of Vera, puts her hand around Vera's throat and starts to choke Vera to death, telling her that she can't say anything. And look at Anne's face. That is one crazy bitch. Vera, she's trying her best to try and push Anne off her, but Anne is too strong for her and she's choking Vera to the point where I thought Vera is literally about to die. I mean, Vera's eyes are open and she looks like she's about to take her final breath, staring into Anne's crazy eyes. But then, just behind Anne appears a person, a head. It's Joan Ferguson. Vera can see Joan behind Anne, and Joan is looking down and watching what's happening. Joan then grabs Anne from behind like a rag doll and pulls her off Vera. Joan then grabs Anne's head and snaps her neck and kills her. I was like, what the hell is going on? I cannot cope with this. This is amazing. So Anne falls to the floor and joins Judy on the death list. Woohoo! Then there's this weird odd scene where Vera is like laying on the floor looking up at Joan, who has just saved her life, and Joan starts to bend down slowly to Vera and their faces get really close. I had no idea what was happening here. I wasn't sure whether Joan was about to finish off what Anne had just started or if she was gonna give Vera a big kiss. It was very surreal. Vera then just seems to pass out very suddenly, and Joan is just there leaning forward at Vera face to face, and Joan's hair's hanging down. It was so weird. It was like, do you know what an angry bear has just found its food and it's sniffing out its prey? That's what it reminded me of. And why did Vera even pass out? Did she hit her head on the ground or something? It was very weird, but a brilliant scene. We then cut to the outside of the prison building where the women are being brought out, and there's firemen everywhere, and we see other prisoners being brought out on a stretcher. There's actually one prisoner who comes out and she's also missing a leg. It was brutal. Rita is there running through looking to see if anyone has seen Ruby, and Rita, she's starting to panic because she can't find her. But then we hear Ruby calling out for Rita, and then they see each other and then they start hugging. So Ruby and Boomer, they are safe, and I was just so happy that Boomer and Baby Bump are safe. Boomer then asks Rita, where is Annie? And Rita's like, wasn't she with you guys? And Boomer's like, no, we thought she must have been with you. Oh god. Will asks Jake if all the women who were locked up have been released, and he says yes, and Rita overhears what's happening. Linda then arrives saying that part of the yard wall has blown out and prisoners are escaping into no man's land, which Rita also overhears. We then cut back to Ali, who is still scrambling to get this mobile phone, and she's nearly there. The fire crew are walking past with torches, asking for any survivors to call out, but Ali is keeping quiet until she's got the phone. She stretches down to grab it, but it's just out of reach, and she keeps trying, and then just as she grabs the phone, the whole ceiling above her comes crashing down on top of her until the screen goes black. Oh my god, guys, not gonna lie, I needed a vodka at this stage. I was pretty much shaking this point in the episode. I honestly thought that is the end of Ali. We then cut to one of my favourite scenes in the episode. So, some of the women are trying to escape from the blown wall, and they are running through the back fields, and they are being chased by some of the officers who are wrestling them to the ground, and I absolutely loved it. It's like they were like being naughty school children. It was amazing. We then see Lou Kelly, who is one of the women running, and she manages to get to the fence, which I am assuming is the final fence to freedom. Lou is climbing this fence like her life depends on it, and as she's climbing, it's playing out in slow version, and you can hear helicopters in the background, and it's so dramatic. And just as she gets to the top of the fence, Rita grabs Lou's legs, and she's trying to pull her down off this fence. But Lou will not let go, and Rita's yanking her, and then Lou eventually comes down onto the ground. Rita then gives Lou one hell of a kick to the guts, and she says, that one's for Mari. Rita then gets on on top of her and says this one is for Ruby and punches her in the face. She then says this one's from me and gives her one final punch, before flipping Lou onto her front and apprehending her with her arms behind her back, and Lou is screaming. And then Linda arrives and is like, Connors? Rita then says she is responsible for all of this. Rita then looks down at Lou and says, bitch, you're under arrest. So Lou didn't make it to the outside world, but she came very close. It was inevitable that she would be caught just at the last hurdle, and she'll probably take a final beating from Rita, which she did. But I'm kind of glad she didn't get killed off. Now let's just say the show does get revived in a couple of years. The writers, they will definitely want Kate Box back. So it made sense not to kill off Lou Kelly just in case. And I predicted this ages ago in one of my prediction videos. We then cut to one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire season for me. We cut back to Ali, and we see Ali's legs stuck under the bricks at one end, and then the camera pans up and we see Ali's top half, and she is pretty much stuck underneath all of these bricks and rubble. And Ali is just laying there, very still. For a moment I did think she was dead, but then I'm thinking I can see her moving. She's just very still, and she's looking up with her eyes open. And then what do we hear? We hear the B and Ali music from season 4 being played in the background, and my eyes started to stream. Ali is looking up, and then all of a sudden there's these bright lights starting to appear to her, and Ali's face is all lit up with the bright lights. And as Ali is looking up, the bright lights get brighter. We then cut to Ali's face, and look guys, she looks happy. She is smiling. And then Ali says in a whispered voice, B. God guys, she saw B. B was coming to get Ali. Oh my god. I broke down in absolute tears in this scene. We didn't actually get to see a glimpse of B, but she was there in spirit, and Ali saw her and said her name, and guys, that was good enough for me. Oh, I'm so happy we had something like this in the final episode. Maybe if it wasn't for COVID, we might have been able to get Danielle in to film a scene, so we could have seen B's face, but don't forget guys, they were filming under very strict COVID rules at the time. So I'm happy with this scene. I'm so happy with it. So, is this now the end for Ali? Well, we cut back to the outside scenes, and Lou is apprehended by Linda and another officer as she's being brought back and given to the police. And Rita walks past her and gives her an evil badass look. Boomer is begging the officers to let her go in and save Ali, but they are like, it's out of the question. Rita comes along and she's like, what's happening? And Ruby tells her that the roof collapsed and they can't get to anyone and they haven't found Ali yet. At this point, they all look really worried, and it's almost as if they start to lose all hope for Ali at this point. We then cut to another incredible scene where we see Joan in the distance carrying Vera in her arms. Look how tall Joan is in this scene. So Joan has taken a hurt Vera from the building and has carried her completely out of the prison grounds. I'm assuming they are somewhere in no man's land and they didn't get seen as they were like walking out. But while Joan is holding Vera, there is all this white smoke behind her, and it just looks so beautifully epic, like something out of a disaster movie. I absolutely loved it. Joan then places Vera gently onto the ground, and Joan is looking at Vera and making sure that she's okay. She's moving dirt out of Vera's hair and stroking her face. Vera then wakes up and looks up at Joan. Vera says, "You carried me out," and Joan nods. She then says to Vera, "You asked me why I did what I did in court and what my endgame was." And Joan then says she didn't know what the answer was to that question, not until now. Joan then puts her hand onto Vera's hand on her stomach, leans down and says, "A child needs her mother." Joan then lets go of Vera's hand, stands up, and Vera's watching in disbelief, but almost looks content and happy. Joan looks down at Vera one final time and smiles. Joan then walks off into the distance with Vera watching, and Joan just keeps walking into the dead of night. That is the last time we ever see Joan Ferguson, and of course, it was Vera and Joan's final ever scene together. Do you know what, guys? This scene did make me emotional. After everything that these two have been through together, I'm glad Joan's final scene was with Vera. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Joan just walking off into the dead of night. Like, where did Joan go? Does she just go off and live in the woods for the rest of her life? I mean, it was beautiful. I loved it. And I suppose this was another one of those storylines where the writers have left it open. Once again, if the show ever does come back, then the writers can bring Joan back if they want to. The thing is, if they had killed off Joan Ferguson, and then let's say the season does return in a few years, then there's no way they can bring Joan back from the dead, not a second time. So in my opinion, the writers have given Joan this ending. 1, it leaves it to our imaginations, and 2, they can bring back Pamela Rabe if it does ever return later on down the line. We then cut back to the outdoor prison scenes, and Lou Kelly is placed onto a chair away from the women and in full company of the police. Linda is there with a clipboard trying to do some sort of head count. Linda starts to do the H1 count, but Boomer is like, fuck the count, we have to go back in and we gotta get Ali. Then Linda actually shows some genuine compassion, something we haven't seen her do in a very long time. And Linda says to Boomer, Jenkins, H1 has gone. I'm sorry. And Linda has a really sad look on her face when she says this, and my tears just kept streaming. Vera then arrives back, and Jake runs over and gives her a massive hug, which I thought was really nice. Will comes over and checks that she's okay as well, and Will then tells Vera that Anne Reynolds is dead and that he's sorry. But look at Vera, she don't say nothing and she don't care. She keeps quiet. Will also says that they haven't found Ali yet. Linda then comes over and says that there are 5 officers and 28 prisoners, all unaccounted for, including Joan Ferguson. Will, Jake and Vera all look at each other, and then I think Jake says something like, well, if she's dead, then she's not a problem anymore. That line did make me giggle because that was such a typical Jake thing to say. But of course, Vera knows what happened to Joan, but again, she says nothing. So once again, a few unanswered questions here. Does Vera tell the authorities that Joan saved her life but has now gone on the run? Or will everyone think that Joan has been killed in the explosion and Vera's gonna keep quiet and let Joan go off and start a new life because Joan saved her? So many unanswered questions here, it hurts my brain. Vera then turns around and she's just looking around, and then we see a dead body in a body bag being wheeled out, and we don't know who it is. And Boomer, Ruby and Rita spot it and they start to get upset, and we're all thinking, as the fans, thinking Ali has died. But then Rita turns around and she sees Ali being wheeled out on another trolley and she's alive. She's okay, she's been saved. And Rita is like, hey Boomer, look. And they look over and they're so happy and they go running over and give Ali massive hug and kisses, and there's just so many happy tears at this point. They also start playing the song Stand By Me in the background, and I'm just like, for God's sake, are the writers trying to give me a nervous breakdown or what? Boomer then delivers a brilliant Boomer line and says to Ali, oh, we all thought you got squished. We all thought you got squished under a roof, bless her. Vera's there in the background looking so happy that Ali's okay, so is Will. And Boomer's like, it's a friggin' miracle. Ali then says, I think it was. And Ali looks over at Rita and says, I got something for you. And Ali pulls out the mobile phone from under B's blanket and gives it to Rita. That was so nice. It was almost as if it was a gift from B. Oh, so lush. And Rita's like, how the hell did you manage that? You're an absolute legend, and gives Ali a kiss on the head. Ali then looks at all her friends and says, it's going to be okay. Oh god, guys, I'm not sure if any of you, or maybe some of you might have clicked onto that line that Ali said, but that is the same final line that B said just before she died in season 4. Remember when B was on the floor and she said, it's all gonna be okay? Oh god, I just couldn't cope. I was just happy, but at the same time I was sad. I've never had so many mixed emotions. My body didn't have a clue what was going on. The episode then slowly ends with Stand By Me playing in the background with the women around Ali, and Vera, Will and Jake, they're all there with smiles on their faces, and the camera pans out, and then it ends. Oh god, if that wasn't sad enough, the end credits roll if you start playing the original Prisoner Cell Blockade theme song, which had me in tears once again. It was such a nice touch though that they did use the Prisoner theme song. I feel that is Wentworth giving Prisoner some respect, because obviously if it wasn't for Prisoner, we never would have got Wentworth, so I just love that. Very respectful. We also see some bloopers and outtakes which helped me to stop crying because the bloopers were quite funny. And then guys, the credits stopped rolling and that was it. The end for the final time. Oh god guys, I knew it was going to be one hell of a roller coaster, but wow, that was just something else. That was outstanding television. I loved every single moment of that final episode. The writers, the cast and crew, the whole team, they did us proud. Now I've been saying throughout all of this review how a lot of things have been left open and there are a lot of unanswered questions. So let's just quickly list them from the top of my head. So who ends up as top dog? Surely this has to be one of the biggest questions that should have been answered in this final episode. I mean, Boomer's pregnant, so she can't be top dog, and if Rita and Ruby are going to get their charges dropped, then Rita's not going to be top dog. Now that leads me on to another question. Do Rita and Ruby get the charges dropped? Now, I don't know about you guys, but does anyone else think that maybe Lou Kelly actually deleted the recordings in a final brutal twist? I mean, Lou knew from episode 9 that Rita wanted that phone, so all Lou had to do was delete the recordings, right? So I know we're all meant to believe that it was a big, nice, happy ending, but if this series ever were to return, I reckon a final twist would be that Lou deleted the recordings. Also, what's next for Lou? There is still a story to continue with Lou Kelly in my opinion. Lou will not be popular with the women now after what she did. She will be hated just like Mari was. But Lou is a lot stronger and brutal than Mari, and a lot of women still fear Fingers Kelly, don't they? Also, there was that look that Rita gave Lou just after Lou was captured. That feud is not over by a long shot. Did Ali have feelings in her legs? This was not fully explained. Also, I want to know what happened when Ali saw Bee's spirit. Did Bee tell her anything? I want to know. Also, I want to see Boomer's pregnancy journey, and I want to see her being a mum. Where the hell did Joan Ferguson go? What's next for her? Will Vera stay quiet? Will Joan go hunting for Dr. Miller after he was gonna send her to Sinclair? Or will Joan just leave the country to start a new life? What will be the consequences from the bomb storyline? So many unanswered questions, and that's just from the top of my head, guys. To me, this was a brilliant final episode for a season, but it did not feel like the final ever episode. It just doesn't. Too much has been left open. It has to come back later on down the line. It just has to. But anyway, a brilliant episode yet again, and a fantastic season, guys. It really has ended on a high for the moment. I will admit the deaths in this final episode were a little bit predictable. I'm probably more shocked that the writers didn't give us a shock death. If Ali had died during that scene with Bee, I would have actually been okay with it. As heartbreaking as it would have been, she would have been back with her one true love. I mean, I'm glad she didn't die, but I would have been okay if she did die. So guys, what did you think of the final episode? Do you agree with some of the points that I've put forward? Do you feel it was a fantastic episode, but way too many storylines have been left open? Do you think there is just a small chance that it could come back after a little break? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. Okay guys, well, I have no more predictions to give you. There isn't a season 10 in the works, at least not yet, but I did put together a small little fanfiction opening scene for season 10 just for a giggle. Some of you may have already seen this over on my Wentworth Life Instagram page, but this is what it said. Season 10, Episode 1. The recap is everything from Season 9, and we see Joan walk off into the darkness after leaving Vera on the floor. Next scene cuts to Joan walking up to someone's house in the dead of night. Knocks on the front door, and Dr. Miller answers. Joan grabs him and snaps his neck, telling him nobody tries to send Joan Ferguson to the nut house. Opening credits roll. Welcome to season 10. So I've already set the wheels in motion for season 10, so if there are any TV stations or writers out there that want me to join in on the team, just give me a shout out. But on a serious note, please come back one day, Wentworth, please. Okay guys, well, it's now time for some comment replies. So we have Ross Merchant. It's been confirmed that the final episode of the series will feature several cameos from the stars of Prisoner. Yes. Ross, I did see your comment and I did look really hard in the episode, like, you know, at background characters and stuff. I didn't see anybody from Prisoner in the episode. Maybe was there like any like extra scenes or deleted scenes that was on like a YouTube video or something? Please let me know because I'd be interested to know. Thank you for your comment, Ross. Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, what an amazing ending, and all the H1 girls survived. I thought Ali was a goner. When they brought her out, I was in bits. Joan saving Vera from Evil Anne and Judy getting her just desserts. Great series, and a great thank you to you, Craig, for all your amazing reviews. Take your time with this and we don't mind if it's later than normal. Oh, thank you for that amazing comment, and I totally agree with everything that you wrote. And yes, this video was always going to take me a little bit longer to make because there was so much to cover. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your comment. And we have Rotty Cult Chris. Craig, remember when you did some episodes of Wentworth fanfiction? They were so good. Can you please do a continuation of Wentworth, even if it is just one episode, to kind of tie up those loose ends, like a what happened next kind of thing? You were so good at it because you think exactly like the writers. Please think about it. Hugs. Oh, thank you for that lovely comment. Thank you for the compliment, actually. That's really amazing. Yes, I remember I did do a season 8 fanfiction, didn't I? I think it was about 5 or 6 parts. And I know a lot of you really did enjoy them. So, you know, I am very open to creating a season 10 fanfiction thing. I'll have to have a think about it and see what I come up with. There's definitely still stories to tell. So I'll keep you updated on that one. Thank you for your comment. And we have Nelson Unit. I was rather of the opinion that it was all left up in the air, and maybe it might come back after all. No key character was killed off. The freak disappeared like a phantom into the night. Anne Reynolds was deranged, should have gone to Smithfield with Joni. Maybe Netflix may pick it up where Foxtel left off. I'm so glad I'm not the only one who thinks this, because that's exactly what I've been saying in all of this review video. So many things have been left open, and to me it feels like it's been done deliberately for a reason. I'd like it to return one day. That will keep me happy. That will shut me up. Thank you for your comment, Nelson, and thank you all for your wonderful, amazing comments. Thank you to everyone who have subscribed to the channel and have been dedicated fans over the years. There wouldn't be a YouTube channel if it wasn't for you guys, so thank you all once again. I also just want to thank the whole cast and crew of Wentworth for bringing us this wonderful TV show that has brought us all together over the last 9 years. It has been a blast, and hopefully this is only just the end for now. Now guys, don't panic, this YouTube channel isn't going anywhere. I am here to keep the Wentworth memory alive. I've got so many videos lined up in the pipeline, it's going to be like Wentworth never ended. I've got a video coming out next week where I'm going to be taking a look back at season 9 as a whole, talking about the things that I liked and what I disliked, and I'm going to be talking about a certain storyline that I felt could have been left out of season 9 in order for other storylines to take center stage. So stick around guys, you will not want to miss it. Okay guys, well thank you all for sticking around until the end of the video. It's been a big one this week. Thank you all for your kind support. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all again very soon.